In the previous section, we looked at how content and context are both critical to designing an effective and compelling piece of data communication. Now we'll look at some basic data visualizations that can help jumpstart your visualization efforts. It likely didn't take much for us to convince you earlier that storytelling is a particularly compelling mode of human communication. And there's a reason that writers ascribe to the age-old saying of show, don't tell, because visual communication is also incredibly powerful. Long before humans were writing 200-page budget reports or sharing stories around the communal fire, we were drawing pictures to communicate. This is still the case because the human brain is optimized for receiving and processing visual information. So when you can combine data with visual storytelling, you're much more likely to get everyone's attention. That said, picking a particular data visualization can be a bit overwhelming, given that there's hundreds of possible options out there. The good news is you have two things going for you. First, you have already done all the groundwork of understanding your data, the content, and your audience and other factors, such as the context. So you should already have a good sense of what you want to communicate. And second, you have the fact that nobody really wants more charts and graphs. They want answers and insights. If you think of your visualization as facilitating those, then it becomes a part of that effort instead of a single weighty decision. What we'll walk through next in this section is a set of questions to answer that will guide you to the best choice. The first thing you need to establish is whether you're using visualizations to explain data to solve specific problems or answer a given question, or to explore data in order to gain a better understanding of what it might tell you or other people. For the purposes of the rest of this course, we're going to focus solely on explanatory visualizations. But it's important to note that many of the same types of visualizations can be useful to exploring and comprehending your data and problem space better. The next question you need to answer for yourself and your target audience is what you're trying to communicate. There's a fairly common set of data visualizations that help with things like comparison, examining composition, understanding relationships, and presenting time and trends. Showing you how to create all these various kinds of visualizations is outside the scope of this course. But this should help guide you towards a set of options from which you can choose for your particular data project. We also highly recommend checking out the DataViz catalog, which shows a huge range of visualization options with explanations of when to use each one. Before we dive into the specifics of each of these types of visualizations, there's one more question you need to answer. The other important aspect of your data is how many things you've measured. You may often hear this referred to as the dimensionality of your data, or how many variables you have. Let's look at some hypothetical box plots as an example. This first one shows the number of registered voters by county. That's 2 variables. Let's say you have data on gender within those voters and want to show that. Then you've got 2 dimensions of that registered voter variable to display, which you can do by breaking the boxes up and placing them next to each other and using color to distinguish between the 2 in a multi-bar chart. Be careful about what colors you choose though, so they'll still work for people who are colorblind. Now consider you want to pull in average income and display that as well. How would you do that? Income is a different variable in that it is measuring something different than number of registered voters. You can't just put another box in next to the ones you already have because the units of measurement for income are very different. Take a minute to think how you'd show that. These charts are examples of a bubble plot, which is often used to show at least 2 different variables in comparison with each other. By adding the bubble shape instead of columns, you can use its size to indicate the average annual income. The larger the bubble, the higher the annual income. Now a more interesting possibility emerges. That number of registered voters might be related to average annual income, which also varies in a similar pattern across the different counties. It's also the case that this is easier to see in the left graph, where gender is not broken out. Again, this is all hypothetical, but just an example to look at how different kinds of data require different visualizations. Next, we'll look at a few other types of visualizations and we'll put this all together in a decision matrix you can use for your next project.